Good afternoon, folks. So why I'm saying that circular design is key when it comes to the circular economy. Let's see if we can find an answer together during the next half an hour. This is something that I've been carrying with me for a long time now. And I think that, in a sense, this is the only slide that we would need. Because really, we don't have an issue with waste, but we have an issue with design. We designed our current linear model, and now we have the great opportunity, and yes, in some ways, a challenge to redesign the whole system in a way that it kind of bends itself into a circular system. So this design challenge takes place in many different levels, whether we talk about individuals, organizations, public sector, companies, societies, or if we talk about this challenge globally. But really, design is a key to everything. And I think what comes to the concept itself, that we've in a way kind of narrowed it down, and design has been kind of owned by designers. And I know that designers have willingness to open up that concept and really kind of enable the use of design, not only in products, but in systems, the way we think. There are lots of different concepts around. One of them is eco-design. Have you heard about eco-design? Yeah, some nods, some no's. Okay. Maybe, in a sense, there could be linear design versus circular design. But I just wanted to highlight you some key differences, why I talk about circular design, and what the kind of key principles are, and kind of main differences. I know that some people use the term eco-design and work around it in a very ambitious and also in a circular way. But I use circular design, so kind of try to bear with me and these different concepts that fly around. But what's the difference? Design, eco-design, traditional design, focuses on the product. That's the key thing. What kind of product we want to create? What is the shape? What's the functionality? What's the aesthetics of the product? Whereas circular design designs systems. It designs life cycles, and the product is part of that bigger system. So it's not kind of an autonomous island that has been created and then it comes out and people hopefully buy it. But we need to understand how the entire system works, how the entire life cycle can be designed and redesigned. Life cycle thinking is no news. We've been using it for years. But how does it really affect the design process? And I think that's something that is fairly new, and there's lots of things that need to be explored and understood and learned in order to reach kind of really ambitious circular design. So designing systems, designing life cycles is one crucial difference. What else? Take, make, waste. Implicitly, when designers normally start their design work, it is based on a kind of sell more, sell faster model. So what is really going out there is that we want to sell volumes instead of services or quality. And in a way, this is embedded in the current design process. If we take plastics, for example, plastics is one of the key topics in the circular economy context right now. It is really wasteful. And to give you an idea of the wastefulness of the plastic sector is that 95% of plastic packaging goes into waste after single use. In monetary value, it is around $80 to $120 billion a year, each year. That is a lot of money that could be used a bit more wisely, perhaps. So this is just one example, but really the current take-make-waste model is wasteful. And there are lots of figures and numbers out there who tell you a similar story to plastic packaging. So what we try to establish with circular design is a process where value circulates. Now, what does it mean? How do we circulate value? Might sound a bit abstract concept, but we really need to understand what the real purpose is before starting to design the product itself. We really need to understand how the whole process around that product, going back to the first point about designing systems and life cycles, how that works. What can be rethought in that process. We also need to understand what the value is. What does it consist of? Monetary value is obvious, but what else is there? What's the ecological value? And how does it really relate to monetary value? What's the societal value? Once again, ecological and societal values are not new concepts, but how can they intertwine with the monetary value? That's something that comes with the circular design thinking. They are far more closely sort of interwoven, embedded with each other than before. Third crucial point is the context framework. So traditional design is based on environmental thinking, which is great. And I'm not saying that we should discard it, not at all. But we need to be more business savvy. We need to understand more about the business logic and how design can help with that business logic. So rather than just having that environmental framework, which quite often tries to minimize the negative environmental impact, we need to step up to the level where we can really maximize the positive environmental impact. If we talk about circular economy, as the concept itself says, it is embedded in the economic context, and so is circular design. And I'll talk about it a bit more in a few minutes. But just to give you an idea of that context and the importance of the context, both at the EU level and national level, is that the circular economy package at the EU is located under Jyrki Katainen's cabinet, which is jobs, growth, and innovation. It's not environment. It's these three: jobs, growth, and innovation. And that's really important when it comes to shifting mindset, what we need to do in terms of planetary boundaries and an environmental concern, and how that needs to be tied up to the business thinking. Also in Finland, the current government spearheads circular economy, and it's a multidisciplinary initiative by all different ministries. So it doesn't reside only at the Ministry of Environment, but also other ministries are involved. So these are some of the kind of key differences and why it is important to understand the fundamentals of circular design and where it can take us. Let's move forward and see some of the kind of business cases, what's out there. We could manufacture mobile phones half of the current price if we designed the phones in a way that they are easier to disassemble, if we design the reverse logistics in a better way, and if we design a system that there would be enough incentives to return the old device. And cutting manufacturing cost by half is, once again, it is quite a lot of money. Washing machines, for some reason, washing machines are something that they're always referred to when we talk about kind of examples in the circular economy. I'm not quite sure why, but apparently they provide a good platform for showcasing new opportunities around a circular economy. But fairly simple thing to do, leasing instead of selling. And you could actually find a huge new customer potential and also cut your costs. This is not just theory. Do you know Miele and Bundle's collaboration in the Netherlands? Who knows it? Okay, I'll tell you about it in a couple of sentences. So Miele, which is the washing machine manufacturer, has teamed up with Bundles, who provides software. And together they've created a service-based model for washing machines. And what this means in practice is that they found a totally new customer segment, which is students. Obviously students, they don't have lots of money, so they're not really interesting kind of a customer segment to a washing machine manufacturer. But through this collaboration and offering service instead of buying a product, this has become very popular among students. It's pay-per-month business model, service model that enables the company, Miele, take back its washing machines after the service contract ends and reuse and remanufacture the parts or the whole machine. Quite clever and quite simple, I would say. Then UK example, just designing the food processing, waste food processing in a better way. These could be the savings. Once again, we're not talking about pennies here. Okay, let's move on. The holy triangle of circular design. This is another thing that I always like to show because it, in a very simple way, highlights what I talked about earlier, that we need to integrate the design thinking and business thinking together. And then, as a third option, or kind of a topic, couple it with service design. In other words, customer experience understanding. And this is what we do with businesses. We iterate around these three topics. Okay, if we change our design, what does it mean in business logic? Where does the money come from? And what does it mean to our customer? And then we do this again and again, refining the whole operations. And that's how it works. You need to start from somewhere, then you pilot it, you learn from it, and then you scale it up. When you talk about design, there are lots of different circular design strategies, different types of approaches. Some of them have been around before. They're not something that was invented a couple of years ago, not at all. But as I said, the context and the way that they've been used is very different. I'll give you some examples. I won't go through all the design strategies. We can talk about those later. But one really interesting example is biomimicry. Who is familiar with biomimicry? Some, yes, okay, great. And do you know Interface? It's a Dutch modular carpet designer and manufacturer company. They operate worldwide, and they are a marvelous company in many ways. They started this, what they call Mission Zero, in 1994. Without going into any details about that Mission Zero, it is a very ambitious program, and they really want to be a net positive company by 2020. So they've got 3 years left, and they're well on their way. There's loads of information on their website. But what I really wanted to highlight here is their approach to biomimicry. And really, they start by asking the question, how does nature design? What can we learn from the nature? And that's a really different starting point and actually a design brief for design process. So they're not really thinking that, okay, how do we want to design it? But let's go back and see how nature has organized this thing. What type of principles it uses? How does it harness the ecosystem around it to design this product? This is one of their concrete examples of biomimicry. Can you find any kind of similarities? There's a gecko on the left-hand side, and then there's tactile on the right-hand side, which is their product, or actually a method how they kind of stick those modular carpets together. And put this in the context is that obviously they're in the carpet business, which is quite wasteful. It used to be very wasteful. So first they came up with the concept of modular carpets, which obviously reduces waste one step further in reducing waste, understanding that, okay, these are more worn out, we need to change these, but these are less worn out patches or modulars, we can leave them on. So instead of removing the whole carpet, they came up with modular modeling. That's one step. But then they wanted to go further. Traditionally, all those carpets, they were glued on the floor. And you can imagine that when you start removing the carpet, there's lots of toxic materials, and it is really, really difficult to recycle, let alone remanufacture using the same materials. So what Interface really did was that they started exploring that, the gecko, it has a kind of way of gripping the wood or the rock. It somehow stays there. Could we learn something from that? How does it do it? And through that learning process, they actually developed this little patch that you can see here. So it's a new and as efficient way of kind of gluing those modular carpets together without using any glue, removing all the toxic materials, enabling them to reuse all this material because it's not glued, it's not contaminated. They can use all the material and put it back in the production line. I've actually visited their factory and seen it, how it happens. It is their reality. It's not a concept, it's their reality. And it's a big business, at least in the Finnish landscape. Their turnover is something around 800 million euros per year. So they've taken a very strategic approach to circular design, and it's paid off. Another fantastic Finnish example of Finnish rainbow trout. Has any of you tasted vanilla fish? It's sold in different supermarkets. And I think this is a fantastic example, and perhaps not so typical design example, but what's really being done here is that they've designed a self-sustaining, circulating system. Fantastic. So what's in that fantastic example? First of all, there's innovation. So traditionally, if you farm fish, you need something to feed those fish with, right? And there's been fish feed or fish oil. So you need to fish or get fish from somewhere in order to produce that fish feed. Doesn't sound very sustainable, does it? But what they came up with was that, hang on, we can replace this with local rapeseed oil and feed the fish with this rapeseed oil. Great. Then what happens then? It is restorative. It really improves the state of the Baltic Sea. Helps conserve and diminishing marine resources, fantastic. And it is local, sustainable fish farming. And sometimes it's good to put things in a kind of longer term perspective. I know that we have quartal-based capital or capitalism, but sometimes it's good to think that, okay, if we continue operating like this, is this still sustainable in 15 or 50 years? And this model would be sustainable. So try vanilla fish next time you go and do your grocery shopping. Third example, this is urban development project, Tampere, Hiedanranta. And once again, I wanted to share this example with you because it is perhaps not so typical design example, or if we talk about circular design, the idea or thinking easily goes into kind of product-based design. But here we are designing a whole new district based on circular economic principles. Once again, it requires a totally new process, understanding not just the kind of the bottom, which is something that we are mainly familiar with. We talk about energy efficiency, we talk about saving water, we talk about zero waste, we talk about increasing public transport, increasing cycling. But what else needs to be taken into account if we really want to create not just ecological district, but a circular district? There needs to be a role for businesses to play. What type of services they can provide, how they can benefit from the synergies and closed loops within that area. And of course, the most important and the kind of superpower of this concept are people. How do you live, work, or visit the area? How do you make it your home? How can you make life easy and relaxing there? Because it's not enough that it's based on circular economic principles if life is not kind of enjoyable there and it's not aesthetically beautiful. So all these things need to come together to realize that this is the way that we need to build cities in the future. And cities and kind of redesigning cities is one of our greatest opportunities. Okay, so to wrap up, design and business really go hand in hand. And some of the things that needs to be done in the design process are low-hanging fruits. They can be easily done. It really requires mainly a shift in your own thinking, a change in your mindset. But some of them might require a leap of faith. As one Dutch director of Van der Lande, a big kind of conveyor belt firm, said to me that there's no one kind of calling out for circular products. Not yet. I believe the time will come at some point. But you just need to have faith that this is what will become. You can do some calculations, but like he said, that they didn't have a business case when they started developing their first circular product. They just knew, because they had done their foresight work properly, that the change towards the circular model and circular kind of society is inevitable. So we need to find ways to kind of renew our strategy and start developing circular products. So in some senses, you need a leap of faith. But you also can choose at what type of world you want to further through your design and through your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Inspiring presentation. Now, questions. Yeah. Can you have the...
My name is Katri. Oh, sorry. Katri Päivärinta from Liminga Vesihuolto. And I would like to ask your opinion about the social benefits of circular design. Have you considered that? You talked about environmental benefits, but what about the social benefits?
I think it is really important and something that has been discussed far too little, and that needs to be embedded in the whole process. There are some kind of concepts around that. In our own work, we talk about shared value, creating and understanding what the value created is, both societally as well as environmentally. But I think that the concept of the circular economy is so kind of diverse. And now that we've been talking about this kind of material flows and industrial symbiosis and circular business models for a while, I think that now that we are moving on to this circular design stage, it's time to really address the social aspect. So yes, it is absolutely crucial to embed that in all the processes.
More questions? I got interested in the idea that what could be your dream come true example of circular design thinking that hasn't been done yet, at least in Finland. You had very nice examples, but
yeah,
you must have a vision or dream. I'm looking forward to that moment when a company or product is reinvented with this method and thinking.
What I'd love to do, this kind of a dream come true, would be to have a company that really wants to explore. I don't say that it needs to change everything overnight, but really going through the whole supply chain and really being willing to explore that what could be the different business logic that is circular or based on circular principles.
Mm-hmm.
And what could be done differently at each different phase. And kind of being willing to see that, hang on, for a while, let's explore and try to understand and learn everything, turn it basically upside down for a while, see what we can find there. Because what happens now that it's very kind of, mostly projects are very limited and they have a very kind of limited scope, which in a way, of course, is a good thing. But there's so many opportunities that the circular economy thinking can provide. And we're just, at the beginning of that, marvelous journey to understand what those new opportunities are. And I'm really talking about growth opportunities, employment opportunities, because they are something, going back to my first slide, that this is not a waste problem, this is a design challenge. That once we start exploring without kind of any prejudice or expectations or preset understanding, that's when the abundance starts emerging. Yeah.
Are you willing to do some name dropping? any companies or communities you want to challenge? Now's a great opportunity for that.
I'd love to challenge construction sector.
Construction sector.
Yes.
Okay, challenge is now
Thank you for asking that.
Okay, any construction company willing to do some new design thinking and circular economy thinking, then here is a challenge for you. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.